So welcome back to Outdoors with the Morgans. We're going to learn a lot today. We are at Wood-Mizer, Shade Gape Pa. We've got Marty and Nick, and this worked out really well. You've got a wide variety of sawmills in the shop here today, right?
Correct, yep.
And we're going to talk about a lot of different things, but one in particular, you probably get a lot of phone calls from people wondering what mill do they need. What do you guys tell them?
Yep, so we're going to ask them to see what they're looking to do. So we're looking for what type of features they need in the machine. So what size of logs they're looking to saw, what type of portability they need. Do they need to be able to tow it behind a vehicle? And then do they need hydraulics? So that's the other kind of big change. We go from kind of smaller mills to bigger mills. We have that hydraulic features on there to help with load, move the log around, things like that. So we're going to start kind of and work our way through kind of what the customer is looking for, what the customer needs, and then we'll kind of go from there.
That's kind of our job. So we get that call, I really don't know what I want to do besides I have some trees down in my property and I want to actually manufacture them into lumber. Wood-Mizer has so many different models. It is kind of overwhelming on what engine do you want? Do you need portable? Or am I going to have my wife help me, or my wife going to operate the machine? So those are things that we kind of ask questions about, and we try to fill in the blanks and help you out. Now, the biggest thing sometimes financially, what can you afford and what do you want to spend? And like Mike mentioned just a little bit ago, that sometimes it is to be what's going to be in the future. So am I going to build a house? Do I have some family members that are actually going to help me out in this operation, and they're growing up. They're going to be in high school in a couple years, and maybe they want to take this on as a business. So it's amazing how many different options that we have where we can actually move into actually a business and actually make some profit on sawing.
Right.
Yep.
And the thing is, like with anything, speed, more convenience, all that costs more. And so it's up to you to kind of inform them and them to make the decision on where they want to go with
Right.
it.
Yeah, we do make the biggest portable mill that's out there, LT70 Super, but you better have some family members that could be carrying lumber away. And that's the thing you can kind of think about. I don't want to be in production. All I want to do is run the mill once a week, once a month, or once a year. So again, how much money do you want to spend for a hobby or a business? So those are things that we kind of ask those questions and get you the right application. So when you get home, you're going to say, wow, you actually have a 30-day money-back guarantee where you can actually say, well, that's not the right mill for me. I want to actually move up to hydraulics. You could actually do that in 30 days. Now, you can do it once in your lifetime. It's not something you could do every week. Yeah. So we actually had a customer
not a demo program.
Yeah, it's not a demo program. Yeah. But yeah, it works out pretty well. You do have some options, and most of the machines have a 2-year warranty, so it gives you some things to think about. So,
right.
Yeah.
So let's start with this little guy here. What do we have right here?
So this is the LX50 Super. It has a 14 horsepower gas engine. This is kind of more in the homeowner hobbyist kind of thing. It's, it'll cut nice lumber, but it's going to do it relatively slowly. So has a kind of maximum log length of 12'5" for your maximum length. About a 24-inch width of cut, so you can do about 24-inch wide board, 26-inch diameter log roughly. They ship kind of in a crate, so they're going to be disassembled from the factory. You have to kind of do the assembly yourself once it gets there.
And that keeps the cost down. So when you get home,
Yep.
you can actually put it together and take care or absorb some of that cost that Wood-Mizer manufacturing.
I'm not looking for a quote, but ballpark, what's a mill like this cost?
So this is about $4,300, so $4,295.
Okay, $4,295. All right. And say you and a relative are out there sawing, half a day on a Saturday, be nothing to saw 3 or 4 logs into 150, 200 board feet of lumber.
Yeah, for what we're doing, sometimes you think about, where you need to be at, and you talk to the customer after they bought this, and they're on their 3rd garage or barn project, and you're going, wow, they really made a lot of use out of that thing, and
Yeah.
it kind of huge value if they had bought their lumber from a lumber yard versus actually sawing their own logs off their property. It's a huge deal. So
right.
Yeah, it kind of gets you like, wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
And one thing about all these mills, even the cost goes up with more convenience and more features, they're all pretty much the same in accuracy.
Right.
Right. You know what I mean?
They cut the same lumber. Each mill works the same. It's all worked on board foot per hour or board foot, in some application. So whether you have a piece of equipment to lift a log or whether you're going to roll it off on just with a can hook and get it up on the machine, those are other things. What kind of support equipment do you have?
Right.
So.
And then the next, this is probably one of the most popular, right, for the LT15?
Well, there's 15 has 3 different stages. You have a 15 start, which has the 14 horsepower recoil start. Then we get into the regular 15, which has a 19 or 25. Then we get into the 15 wide, which gives you the application where some of the live edge slab market is actually out there, and you can do 35.5 inches wide, 36 inches in diameter. So, and this one's actually sold. It's being picked up this week. Now this will do 17 foot in length, and you can actually add track section to it and actually do as long as you need to, just like a train track. Just keep going, yeah.
This has a trailer option on it, so the standard machine is going to be down on the ground. You're going to set it directly on the ground. This, we make a bolt-on trailer kit for these, so you can either buy that with the machine originally, or you can buy that later on and bolt that on the machine. So it has a tongue, a couple of support braces, and then your axle and tail lights at the back end there.
Sawmill trailers, that's special equipment, right? How's that work for pulling down the road?
In Pennsylvania, Maryland, West Virginia, Virginia, you don't need a tag because it's a specialized piece of equipment. It's incidental use. Okay. So you really don't need anything. But if you put a 2x4 on it, then you're actually carrying something. So then it becomes a trailer, then you should put a license plate on it. But this is not designed to have anything actually, you wouldn't want to put a log on and go down the highway.
Right. Yeah, obviously. Right. So this is the wide. And what engine did you say is on this one?
This is standard with a 25, and you can go with the diesel option.
Okay.
It actually is carried, all the weight's carried on the axle. You can see there we don't want the saw head transported on the front of the saw. So gasoline powered, diesel's an option. We have the lube tank there with a little bit of soap and water in that to keep the blade clean. This has a 176 inch long band, 45 thousandths and a quarter is the most popular, but you could go with a wider band or a thicker band if you really needed to, but it wouldn't be something that we'd recommend just because of the cost.
Right.
There's no real advantage to that. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Ballpark price on a 15 wide?
This one I actually have the cost here at $15,690 before tax. Blades, there's no power feed on there, so there are some options you could add to. You could add the power feed option. You could put a resaw on this machine. You could put the lathe attachment on it. So there is some other things that you could actually do things in the future where you, wow, maybe I could want to make some beds to sell or some different things. So there is some options that you could add and make it pretty neat. So.
Right. What do we have here next?
So this is the next size up. This is an LT28. Has a little bit longer cutting length on it. Has a little bit different style frame. So you're looking, you have a little better access to your boards and stuff you're pulling off. So as opposed to like the 15, which has a kind of a square frame on it, this has this kind of trapezoidal frame here. So it gives you a little bit easier access to pull your boards off and things like that. About the same cutting capacity as a standard 15. So still about 26 inches through the throat here. You can get a little bit bigger log now though, because you don't have this open side now on this side. You don't have that vertical post on this other side. A little bit longer cutting lengths. We can do 20.
Explain the vertical post versus cantilever.
So this is a cantilever design. So we have all the support mechanism on this side, which makes it a little bit more mechanically simple. So we have a single lift mechanism over there as opposed to a double lift mechanism you see on some other machines, like our LX models. So we only have a single point of failure there. So we only have one mechanism that we're having wear and tear on.
Right.
Don't have to balance them either, so you don't have to to balance the left and right side of your lift mechanism. And because we have that open side on this side, we can now kind of stick odd-shaped logs, so we have that odd shape on this side towards me, so then we can cut through that a little bit easier than having that vertical support post over here.
Yeah, you get a big knot or a Y or something there, you can kind of work around it a little bit better on this.
Yes. And it also gives us better access, so like I said earlier, we're easier to reach in here and pull stuff away as we're off bearing from the machine or loading the machine.
Everything that's pretty cool about this is the hinge covers. Go ahead and open that one up. It's easy to change in the blade, just open that up. And then we have the loose fitting belt, which we've been using, for 40
I always
years.
see that question about my belt's loose.
Right.
Explain why the belt's loose. Knock the sawdust off, right?
Well, that's one reason, but we rotate the wheel belts just like you would in your car. So if this belt does all the work, it's driving. So we can take this belt off, we can move it over to the idle side, and we can invert it, we can put it back on. If we use a tight fitting belt, we almost have to cut it off or pry it off, and then it usually damages the belt. And then you have that vibration where that sawdust does fall off. That helps keep the belt clean.
Right.
So it works pretty well. So. And the other thing I like about these, the 15, the 28, the 35, how the drive belt's designed, where it actually gets wrapped almost 3/4 of the way around the pulley, which gives it a good drive. And we don't have any slippage issues with these because this pulley comes up and really tightens up that belt.
Right.
So the cut quality in these things are amazing. So. Yeah, a lot of guys are talking about the block of wood in there for vibrations. So where the belt's actually formed at, sometimes there'll just be a little deviation, and that band will come up and touch that block and keep it from vibrating excessively. You can actually, if the block comes out, it can vibrate so much that it'll make the band break. So, yeah, the rollers on the small mills are used clear up into the LT70. So same roller. Yep. So quality's there, hardened roller there. It works out real well. The blade tension on these small mills are really cool, where it actually has a 2,500 pound bushing. As the blade gets a little bit longer, it compensates for that, so you don't have to constantly adjust it like you would with a 40, which 40 just gives you an idea of actually what's happening, but this keeps it tight. So again, these designs work really well.
Yep, so we have our auxiliary bed rails here. So we have an adjustable bed rail that slides in and out to adjust for a shorter or longer log. So if you have a shorter log, we can move this in to give us a little more support on that short log. Longer log, we can move it out to the same thing. So that gives us a little bit of variation there on that support. So we always want to have as much support on the bottom of that log as we can have. So that gives us a little bit of adjustment there on that. We have our side supports over here. So this is what we're clamping the log against back here. So these are manual on this machine. We're going to move these up or down based on what our current cut height is. So generally I like to keep these about between half and a third up on the log when I'm still round. Once I get down to a square cant, I can take them down most of the way then, just enough to hold that bottom of that cant in place. We have our loading ramps here, which are just kind of in our travel position. So they lock in on the pins over there on that side to help us load the machine up. And then a mechanical clamp here is just based on the cam system.
Right.
Have our blade gut armor adjustment here. So this is adjusting our width of our cut. So we can go up to 26 inches on this machine. So that opens that up, and we can narrow that in if we're cutting a narrow cut. So we want a little more support on that band in towards the center. Blade engagement lever here. So we're going to pull this down to engage the blade and start it moving. We're going to release that again to stop the band. So there's a spring there that pulls that back to center and breaks that band to slow it down. Lift assist system, or lift system here. So this is our up and down. Each notch here is actually a 1/16 of an inch of travel with a saw head. A half revolution is an inch of travel, and a full revolution is 2 inches of travel. So if I wanted to cut a 1-inch board, it makes it relatively easy to do that. So I'll just go half revolution, and I go 2 notches then for my thickness of my blade. I'm losing roughly 1/8 of an inch for that blade thickness there. Water, of course, up here. So use a little bit of water and soap in there. Usually a mixture of 5 gallons of water, a pint of pine sol, and a tablespoon of Dawn to 5 gallons of water or windshield washer fluid in the winter to keep it from freezing.
So
Marty, why are these stainless?
So
I know the answer, but I want you to explain.
the stainless is there to actually keep from staining your hardwoods, your oaks, because if you have metal to metal contact with the oak wood, it'll actually turn blue or black, and then
Quick,
yeah,
too.
real quick. So you can also buy, even with the 28, you can buy the little sleeves that goes on that, and you can actually keep it from staining there. Now, whether it's a big deal or not, that'll be up to you, whatever your application is. So, yeah, that's what they're for.
Marty, what's the story with this mill here?
Well, this is a custer's mill. It was actually owned by 4 gentlemen that were in their 70s or plus, and they brought it in here, and we kind of discouraged them to put a new engine on it and a new power feed, and they said, nope, we want to put it back in service. So we took the old Kohler 14 horsepower off, and I put a 19 horsepower twin on there, and Andrew's working it over, put a new battery in it, put a new power feed on it. So they're investing some money in it, and we're putting it back to service.
1982, right?
1982, the year I graduated from high school.
I was a sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
But that gives you some idea of the longevity here.
Unbelievable. We've talked to customers where when they first came out, when Wood-Mizer made this, that they thought they would see them in all the fence rows, that would never last. And here we are, 1982, put them back in service. And as far as I know, there's no such thing as a Wood-Mizer junkyard. So there's no place out there to get old parts because they put them back in service. It's just amazing, the value that they withstand. And the cantilever head's always something that people talk about. Is it strong? Here you go. There's a perfect example. There's one of the very first mills that made by Wood-Mizer that we're putting it back in service and putting it back to work. So,
well, it's simple, but it functions the same way.
Last cut's 3 inches thick, so
Yeah.
So you kind of have to figure out your last cut, but yeah, it works out well.
So the 3 inches, what are we going to hit if we try to go, or it just won't go any lower?
You can see the guide system's made a little different. Andrew's got them off there now, but
Okay.
that would actually hit the frame. So when he comes down, so that would be a problem. So, and again, this is where we started, and you can see some similarities on today's mill. So that's just another thing. It's just I was just thinking about that the other day. Imagine making this, you know, Laskowski, Takovi team made this machine and put it out there and said, okay, you know, we're going to sell this, and it took off. So,
yeah. The rest is history.
the rest is history. Yep.
Good.
My dad made this about 10 years ago just out of some parts he had laying around. It's got a differential and I have a lawnmower, and it really saves us moving the equipment.
That is sweet. I like that.
Yeah. And we're using the drum switch off the Wood-Mizer sawmill, and we changed the directions and took an old motor that we had laying around, and works, really saves the back after a while. So.
What do we have here, Nick?
This is the LT35 hydraulics. This is the first mill that has all your hydraulic functions on it.
Now, for someone, the key differences between hydraulic and manual.
Yep, so we have a lot less manual labor essentially. So we're not having to walk out there with a can hook and flip that log over with our arms essentially. So we have a hydraulic log loader. So we're loading the log mechanical with those hydraulics. We don't have to have a tractor there alongside it to load it or have to winch it up manually. We have the arm turner on there. It's going to turn that log for us. That's going to get rid of having to go out there with the can hook and flip it over. And we have the clamp as well. So that makes it a lot faster to move that log around on the machine. So I can stand back here, use the hydraulics rather than having to work around out there and clamp it in. So we save a lot of time with that as well. So it is a production increase as well as a labor saver.
And you're a younger guy, but us older guys really like the hydraulics.
I understand. Yep.
Yeah. And the younger guys will wish they had them later on in life.
They will, yes.
Really saves the body.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, it's a huge.
Why don't we just set the mill up, and we'll show you exactly how much time it actually takes to set a cantilever head mill up compared to some of the other machines out there with 4 posts on.
Let's do that.
And we'll just go through it here quick, and Nick will talk about it, and I'll go through the motions. So,
okay.
So we're going to take the jack handle, which is on the back leg. Okay, Nick.
All right, so we're going to level the machine out roughly using the front leg. We're going to drop the 2 intermediate legs down here next, which will help us support the machine. We never want to pick the tires off the ground with the legs. We want them to have a fair amount of support there. So he's going to drop that down so there's weight on that front leg. He's going to walk back now, pull the fenders off. So the fenders are there just for transit, so we need them there to keep from kicking stones and stuff off up the road. But we're going to take them off for operation.
This is like watching a pit crew here.
I know, he gets pretty good at it. So he's going to unchain the safety chain at the back there, which allows us to move the saw head. So we have that there just in case the pin were to break, the saw head sits down on. And we're going to pick the saw head up. So the saw head is in its rest position right now, so you're going to pick the saw head up to get over our hydraulics. So the hydraulics only operate when we're back at the last kind of 6 feet of track here at this end. So we're going to have to go up and over those hydraulics there. And that'll take the weight off the back legs in. So it makes it relatively easy to set those back legs down once we get that weight back off of them. So we got to be at least 26 inches off the bed there to get over those hydraulics. That's what it's going up to there. All right, now that we're back, we can operate those hydraulic functions. So he's going to unpack the hydraulic loader there. So the turn rest to come up, which will bring the chain loose that holds the loading arms in place. We're dropping the feet down for the loading arms, so that's what actually pushes down against the ground to load the log. We're unhooking the loading arms there and drop them down the rest of the way. The rest pin where the saw head sits for travel needs to be dropped down out of the way as well. So he's dropping that down there now. And then the back 3 feet there get set down as well. So again, we're 2 intermediate legs there to help support the machine, and then the back leg actually helps to level the machine out from end to end. We always want to make sure we have weight on that back leg. So actually, there's a slight bow building across the length of the machine. So when we load a heavy log up on there, it actually kind of allows us to level that machine out. Otherwise, we'd have a bow to it if we loaded a heavy log up on it.
There we go. I don't think we made our 15 minutes. I usually say 15 minutes, but I think we're what, 4, 5?
Oh, that was fast.
Yep, so just finishing loading the hydraulics out of the way, and then we're ready to load your log up.
And the loader will lift 4,400 pounds, so that's a huge log. Yep, 21 foot long. Side supports are up 12 inches from the bed rail, so we do have to maintain those, and we're not sawing into them. The log turner and the clamp work together if you need to. And a lot of customers are not quite sure about when they order hydraulics that they're talking about, well, I want the toe boards, but I don't want the loader, I don't need the clamp. Wood-Mizer's you get a hydraulic mill, it comes with all the features, and that's really pretty cool, where those things will all do things. So the other thing is when we're sawing the log, we can use the loader to actually push our pieces over, we call them flitches, to actually edge. So we don't have to get them on the ground and then pick them back up and set them back on.
I use that all the time just for putting stuff on, it's gonna go back on or what.
Yeah. So again, that's just another feature that you can use that loader, then you don't have to lift them again, so it's easier on the back. And as you get older, which you appreciate those times where you didn't have to do some extra lifting. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was impressive, Marty. I said, I don't know if you heard me, so it's like watching a pit crew, one-man pit crew.
Yep. And we have the mud saw as an option on this machine. I don't know if you saw, but I unpinned that.
Everybody always asks me about the debarker.
Yeah.
A lot of people, one question they always ask is, why don't you need one on the other side?
Well, the dirt falls off. So just like a chainsaw, if you drag the dirt through the cut, it's going to dull the blade really quick on the inside where the blade enters the wood. So we get that bark off there, which Mother Nature or God made that bark abrasive. So it keeps the insects from penetrating it. You're also dulling the blade. So if you can get rid of that, but again, if there's anything on the other side, it just kind of falls off. It doesn't ride through the blade and get rubbed in there like.
Do you have a ballpark idea on, say, just pine, how many board feet out of a blade with a debarker and without? Ballpark idea?
Well, we usually say 500 board feet without a debarker, 800 board feet with a debarker.
And I just so you know, that red pine, I got about 1,050 out of my last blade. But the logs were clean, you know what I mean? Now I've got the diesel. That's something too to talk about, because you don't always realize your blade's getting dull with that much power that I have sawing pine. You know what I mean? But my cut was still good, but I was to the point where I needed to make a blade change. But it was, best as I can tell, 1,050 feet is what I got out of a blade.
And then you have the high performance guide blocks, which is forcing that dull blade to cut. So that 10,000ths. So if it gets dull a little bit, you may not notice that because that plate's holding that cut.
Right.
You know? So that's the other thing that's an advantage of going with the bigger mill with the guides. And again, we could argue about the guides and what importance they are, but that's what they're designed to, is when the blade starts to get a little bit dull and you get up above your 800 board feet and it starts to get dull. So those are forcing that blade to run straight. Yeah.
Right. So what do we got here?
So we have two LT40 Super hydraulics. One has a walk with control setup and one has a remote control setup. So this is a fixed control system that sits at the end of the frame, and that allows you to send the saw head kind of away and back towards you again without having to walk with the saw head. With this one here, we have that walk with control, so we're having to walk back and forth with the saw head. The command control here, it allows us to kind of do a lot more production stuff with it, so we're not walking back and forth with the saw, so we can send the saw head faster than we could really walk with it regularly.
Now this one here, this one's Dean's, right?
Yeah, this is Dean Kraut's. He's coming to get it maybe tomorrow or Friday. It's going to be going out, and the other one's going to West Virginia.
Of it the other day. I said, I'm going to see it before you. He goes, no, I was out there the other day. I've seen it already.
Yeah, we tore the plastic off so you could take a peek at it, and I've been sending him pictures. But
yeah.
Yep. Now the super hydraulic we went from Setworks on the 35. Now we have AccuSet, which we have bed referencing, which is another feature that you can get when you move up to the 40.
Can you show them pattern mode? Well, show them all the modes.
Yep, sure. So we have, right now it tells me what the distance is from the blade to the bed rail. So it kind of matches this. So we have 23 and 3/16 on the scale. And then we have the hand button on the left, or the trigger button. We can actually tell it to go to 24. So right there it says program 324. And it's actually going to go right to 24. And it's going to be dialed in. So you have 4 different settings there. We have auto down, which is going to measure from where I'm at, which is 24, plus it's going to figure out the kerf loss. With the Setworks, you have to figure in the kerf loss in your drop. So our lumber is going to be 1.8 inches thick. All we got to do is touch the drum switch down, and it's going to go down, plus it's going to figure out that kerf, which we have at 96 thousandths versus 125, which would be your 1/8. Then we have auto up, which we don't use that much, but it would go up. So if you came down to a cant, let's say you had a flat side down and you wanted to see how many cuts you had above a target width, which could be 6 or 8 inches, you could hit that, bump it up, and then hit back to auto down, and it's going to come right back to that number. Then we have pattern cut, which we have 16 different values that we can program. There's 4 under each number, so 1, 5, 9, and 13 go back to 1. We have 16 that we can actually preset. Then we have pattern cut, which we can actually go in and program that, and we can program that now to our 1 1/8. And let's just say that we wanted to do a railroad tie, 7 inches, 7x9 tie. We could program it to 7 inches or any target width that we were going to cut for the day, and it'll actually figure every cut from where we're at down to 7 inches and stop. So that would guarantee that we had our
And you'll
value.
have an 1 1/8 board all the way down.
All the way
to
down.
that, and it'll be 7 inch at the bottom.
As long as we turn that can 180 degrees every time, we don't have to change it. If we turn 90, do a rectangle or a different value, then we could have another
Right.
pattern for a different thickness, so your 9 inch on your tie or whatever, 3.5 by 5 pallet lumber, or whatever you're doing. Yep.
Yep.
Just pre-program it. So
Both these have the diesel.
both have the Tier 4 diesel. We're not using any kind of exhaust fluid. It just it'll regenerate over time, depending on what we need to do. So just
I've noticed with mine around every 30, 32 hours, I think, is what I'm getting.
yeah.
Now, I get more regens, like on tractors and stuff, because I think I have more idle time. When these are running, most of the time they're running. You
Right.
know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think that helps keep it a little cleaner. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it seems to be.
Yeah, but it's based on the engine horsepower and how much idle time it has. So if you have a really, really large engine and you don't have to put a high load on it, you have more of that diesel particulate builds up in the exhaust. So, the more load you can put on it and the smaller engine you can have, the better you do for burning that exhaust particulate off.
Right. Yanmars, people seem to love the Yanmar.
Yep. I think all the mills that we've had, I think we've only actually had to do what's called a force regen on 4 of them. Over time. So when they come in, we're scrambling, trying to remember exactly what we have to do. We have a laptop that we can get from corporate Wood-Mizer through Dennis Ottinger, and he sends us out and he gives us support if we need help in through that. So, yeah.
What else on the 40s? What sets these apart from like the 35 hydraulic?
Well,
Besides the obvious.
we'll just start out. The bed's going to be the same on the 35 and the 40, except the hoses are actually a little bit larger in internal diameter, and we have 2 hydraulic pumps versus 1. So the 35 would have 2 gallon per minute, and the 40 standard would have 2 gallon per minute. But then we go up to the super, then we have 4 gallon per minute. Again, the hoses are a little bit bigger. And you notice the stainless steel covers on the bed rails or on the side supports now, which you can add to even the 28, 35, 40, and then the 40 comes standard. The 40 also has a board return, which will bring your lumber back, go in there, and you can add some different options to the 40 series that you couldn't add to the 35. So you can add AccuSet. The board return could be an option even on a standard hydraulic. We can add Lube-Mizer, which puts the lubrication to the blade with
I
a
really
force
like
pump.
the Lube-Mizer. That
Yeah.
was something I wasn't sure if I needed. And I use a lot less water.
Yeah.
It's
It's amazing if you go through and you're using the blade tensioner as a tool. So as the tension starts to back, let's say you're cutting hickory at something that's really dense, you can just reach up, hit continuous, and completely flood the blade with water. Flip it back up to pulse and actually change your pulse a little bit higher. So again, you can actually play around with that and get it dialed in perfect. So you're not using excess lube. And then the motors for the up and down between the standard hydraulic and the super hydraulic. They have the big Leeson motors for the up and down and the power feed. So you need that to when you're bringing the board, like a cant back, you can go through the cut, bring your cant and your board back when you return. So that kind of helps out there.
a couple experienced guys, like what would this produce in a day? What's this rated at?
Well, again, there's a lot of variables to that. I think it's rated at 650 board foot an hour. Is that right? Somewhere in that range?
Somewhere in that ballpark, yeah.
So again, can you go out yourself and do that? And then you add an edger to it, or add an employee or someone to carry lumber, just like you talked about. You and your son actually saw what the production rate was different.
It's one person, one additional person, you're looking at 3 times the production minimal.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just that much faster.
And you'll get customers that'll challenge you on that, and you're going, and you go there, and like I went to one that had an LT70, and they had a post between the edger and the sawmill, and the guy had little arms on, and he was carrying these pieces around this post. I'm like, let's bring the edger over and get everything in line.
Yeah.
And it really changed. He's like, they called back, he's like, wow, that really helped out. Our production went
Right.
way up. So, so again, just little things to think about, your flow, your material, and diameter of logs and, you know, how many cut lines it has. Those are all things that actually come into the formula. And some big sawmills, they figure that out. You know, how many times is that blade going to go through that log before I can get it off and get another tie on there? Or if I'm, you know, it just depends on what you're sawing, whether you're doing, you know, 8-foot logs or you're doing 21-foot logs. The production is going to definitely go down on sawing a huge long log and doing beams and making sure everything's perfect for that application.
And the amount of lumber, like I like about an 18-inch log.
Right.
You know what I mean? That seems to be the sweet spot right there. They're not real big to handle. The lumber's not real big coming off, but they make a lot of lumber. You know what I mean? You get down at 12, 13 stuff, you're doing a lot of squaring up and stuff before you're making any lumber. But I like an 18-inch log. You know what I mean? It's a nice size.
We were at a show in West Virginia, I'm going to say 5-6 years ago, and the guy comes up and says, "Will that do a 40-inch log?" I said, "Well, no, it's really rated for 36." And he says, "I'll see you tomorrow." And I told Todd, who was working with me, I said, that log was going to be here tomorrow, and it was. And we actually got it, and that's before the wide was out. And it took us a couple hours to get it broke down, but we got some beautiful lumber out of it. So it's not, again, just you have a little bit of distance between the blade and the top of the frame, where it's actually 10 inches on this with the board return. Without the board return, you can actually get 12 inches above that. But yeah, when you're younger, you kind of look at those, and as I get older, I kind of shy away from them. So. But the debarker is an option. You know, that's another option we kind of talk about, how it actually affects the cut. You know, doesn't quite double the blade life, but it does actually, from 500 board feet to 800 is definitely a difference. So
absolutely.
And it's a little different design. They changed the design when they went to the wide. I think the standard head is actually not available anymore. They went and made everything wide.
That's correct.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, no price difference. So Wood-Mizer decided corporately that they were just going to offer the wide head only and not go with the standard head anymore, just because of the sales and the demand. So it seemed to be good. Yeah. One option we can talk about is versus the command control versus the walk mill is you can actually add extensions to any of these mills, LT28 up to the LT70, but certain ones you can only add 6 foot to because of the cat track, and we can walk over there and look at that. You could do 45 feet on this machine, and mostly out west where they do that, but we do have some customers in this area that'll actually add the 24-foot extension. But with a command control, that would limit that extension. It only goes 27 feet. This way you go 45 feet.
Maintenance-wise, what do you think between the command and the walk? Is there a big difference? Do you have any issues with this?
No. A lot of people are concerned about the cable carrier over here that actually carries the wires. But each part's actually replaceable, and amazingly enough, we don't sell a lot of those parts. So you just have to watch out for that. It is a wear issue, and probably in a 6,000 range, 6,000 hours, where the hinges start to wear and you need to replace it. But again, it just depends on, at the end of the day, whether you're blowing the sawdust out.
I do that every time. As soon as I'm done, I clean everything up, because it'll accumulate in certain places, and it's just going to wear things out faster.
Yeah, you'll see, you know, I've been out in the field where they actually have that cable carrier, cat track we call it, running in the sawdust constantly. It's actually buried in there, and you're going, oh my. Yeah, that's definitely going to be a maintenance issue. So it's something you have to kind of take care of. Like anything, you just don't want to, you know, ignore it and expect it to work when you go back. So if you don't pay any attention to it, things are going to happen. So,
right.
Yeah.
All right, so the other advantage to the command controllers, we actually have the hydraulic controls up at a higher elevation here, so we're a little bit easier access to these. On the the walk with 40 is down kind of at knee level. Up here it's more at waist level, so it gives a little better access. You don't have to lean over all the time to run those hydraulics.
And you can also grab this if you need to actually look down the log to see where your clamp is. You can actually pull that control over and actually run the hydraulics and still be able to see where the clamp is. So that's pretty cool. I like doing that. There is actually a bolt that comes from the factory, and a lot of times we remove that once we tell the customer, you know, just be careful of that to keep from swinging. So yeah, we take the bolt out and inform them that they have to be careful of that. So if you're using the board return,
I need to do this more. I just, for some reason, I like being straight on it, but I do find myself always leaning over, where I don't even have to do that.
Yeah, just push it back over when you're ready to saw, and when you want to do that, just kind of look down the log and bring it over with you, and you can see exactly what's happening. It works really cool. So
let's talk about guide blocks, the differences.
Well, with the high pressure Wood-Mizer system, you can actually, once you add that, you can add the high performance guide blocks, and we talked about, you saw on your pine, your red pine. So, you know, this is a sandwich guide that kind of goes, the blade goes in between that, and there's about 10 thousandths clearance between that guide and the blade. So that forces that dull blade to cut. Any other time, you don't really need it because it should not ever move and actually hit those. So it does require a little more maintenance of keeping your blade clean, because if the blade builds up with sap, then it's going to make the band hot, and you'll notice that with your blade tension. So, but it is something you can add to any mill with Wood-Mizer, command control or walk, either one. Any 40 would be able to add that, so you can kind of see, and you can adjust that as it wears down a little bit. But if the blade continually hits that block, it's going to make the band hot, and you'll see that in your tensioner.
So we started off over here. We made our way around. Now, to kind of review what we talked about, let's talk about width of cut, Nick.
Okay. So with their smaller mills, like the LX50 and LX50 Super, they're going to have about a 24-inch width of cut. So, you know, maximum log diameter, we're talking about 26, but the biggest board you can actually take off the machine were about 24 inches wide. Now, when you move up to 15s, we have kind of two options there. We have a standard head, which will do 26-inch wide boards, and the wide head, which we saw over here, which will do about 35-inch wide boards at the max. Then, you know, as you go up in the machines, the 35s and the 28s will do, again, about 26 inches for the width of cut. Then as you move up to the 40s, they now have a 34-inch wide cut, roughly. So as we have a couple options there for different size of cutting widths.
So not only are these logs, or I'm sorry, not only are these mills, you have the increased production with the fully hydraulics, the bigger engines and all that, also an increased cut capacity on these as well.
Yep.
Then you could go up to the LX250, which will do 54-inch cut, or WM1000 that'll do 67-inch cut if you really want to get serious on some big.
That's for them guys, the big slab guys.
Big urban logs. Yep.
Yeah.
And they're quite popular. We have some customers that buy them, and we're doing quite well with it. So
they're a little more specialized though, so they're going to be kind of turned more to only doing slab cuts. You're not really doing dimensional boards with that. So you're not really cutting 2x4s and things like that with those machines.
It's not really designed to do like beams like ties and that type of thing. It's just
right.
Going to be so slow. It's just made for that urban, big ugly trees. You know,
right.
People like character wood and, you know, knots and that type of thing. Yep.
How big an area do you guys service?
Pennsylvania, Maryland, West Virginia, and then we pick up Delaware and New Jersey, even though it's not really assigned to us, but we service mills in that area also.
Okay.
So, yep.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing is your customers, you know, the people that are watching this should be aware that if they order online, they kind of eliminate us. And we're always here to help you. So, you know, we always appreciate your business. Most things that are getting shipped out, you know, you get them the next day in that area.
Yeah, you guys have been a huge help to me. I mean, if I have a question, and Marty's the kind of guy, I see you answering people on Facebook pages from other parts of the country, you know, asking questions about your answers are always what they're looking for.
Try to help you out. We've been doing it a long time, and Nick knows I've taught Nick everything I know. It only took a couple of minutes, but we got them all figured out there. So
Oh, yeah, not quite.
Help you. Andrew's here. He's working on. Brandon's here. We have a good group of people helping us. So
yeah.
It's not like I do it all myself, but that goes back to them too. Because I can't. There's no way that we can cover the amount of people we talk to.
And they're not overly complicated machines, but they're a specialty item. You know what I mean? And not everybody's familiar with them. And it's nice having that guy that you can reach out to when you have a question, you know?
Just like the gentleman that came in, we reviewed the dry belt tension with him. He came in here just to get a blade, and we wanted to make sure that he understood exactly what his problem was. That's what I went up and asked him. I said, you know what problem? Well, I just wanted to try some different things. Okay, are you having a problem? Well, not really, but I said, what about your dry belt tension? So we just took him back and showed him how to do it while he was here. So that's the thing, if you call us and you have a problem or you want to discuss something, we're here to help you. So
right.
And we do it every day, so it's not something that we're always busy, but always call us. Let us know what you need.
Well, good deal. Well, I really appreciate the tour here today and going over everything.
I really appreciate you coming out and spending time with us.
When you brought my LT50 out, I still go back to that video and see things that.
A lot of people talk about that. You'll hear them, and I'll actually tell them after they get their training, say, but you know, check out the Outdoors of the Morgans. You know, Mike did a nice job.
Yeah, that was one of my longest videos, but it was just so much information in there. It's a good reference for people to go back and pick up on things. I know it is for me. But I really appreciate you guys, and thanks for everything.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.